Greetings, this is Bradford Donald Keller Townsend, and this is a forward research report, Google AdSense, Part 2, Section 11, Confidentiality. You agree not to disclose Google confidential information without prior written consent. In parentheses, Google confidential information in bold. That has illegal ramifications as well, being capitalized and in bold. Google confidential information. To them, that's a big deal and a high priority to maintain. Confidentiality means keeping it secret or occult. Includes A, all Google software, technology, and documentation relating to the services. Semicolon, B in parentheses, click-through rates or other statistics relating to property performance as pertaining to the services. C, the existence of information about or terms of any non-public beta or experimental features in a service, and D in parentheses, any other information made available by Google that is marked confidential or would normally be considered confidential under the circumstances in which it is presented. Google confidential information does not include information that you already knew prior to your use of the services that belongs public through no fault of yours, that was independently developed by you, or that was legally given to you by a third party. Notwithstanding this section 11, you may accurately disclose the amount of Google's gross payments resulting from your use of the services. 12. Indemnity. You agree to indemnity and defend Google, its affiliates, agents, and advertisers from and against any and all third-party claims and liabilities arising out of or related to the properties, including any content served on the properties capitalized that is not provided by Google, your use of the services, or your breach of any term of the AdSense terms. Google's advertisers are third-party beneficiaries of this indemnity. Okay, and then under that it says there's a checkbox. Yes, comma, I have read and accepted this agreement. You represent that you are an administrator of this account, and that has legal responsibilities to being an administrator. That means you're like a legal personage that's considered competent in taking responsibility, and that you are authorized, another powerful loaded concept, to act, also, to make things happen, to do work. Work means you are using a force that moves something. If there's no motion, there's no power. On behalf of, and you're moving bits and bytes and code around, so that is doing work by the definition of the laws of physics and maritime law. And I think that's pronounced bind in English, to this agreement. The owner of this account. Now, I've studied ancient Greek Hebrew, Latin, French, German, Spanish, Italian, and Deutsch, German. Um, and I'm always reading things in different languages, plus English. If you look at a full dictionary, most words have many meanings. Some of the most common words, like mean, M-E-A-N, may have like 27 definitions. And what an attorney, lawyer, barrister, solicitor does is they look amongst the whole menu of definitions of a word in a contract or agreement that represents the interests of those who are paying them, and present that in the argument. And although that is done, and you can have a very brilliantly crafted legal argument, like a mathematical proof, like the Pythagorean theorem type concept of a document, that may not avail you anything, because might makes right in the legal system. And the whole legal system was created by my ancestors to protect the property rights of the power elite. We came over here on the first boat of Europeans who either survived and that were not assimilated into the Native Americans, there were Vikings and probably Knight Templars and others that came here but did not bring many females with them. And over time, their DNA even is difficult to measure in the northern tribes, like the Cree Indians of Canada. Columbus, probably through secret society connections, knew that there had been many voyages to the New World and colonizations, but they were just they either died from disease or from wars with the local tribes, or they married native indigenous peoples, and then it only takes a few generations for your DNA to be extinguished, even with modern tests, or to be very within the margin of error percentages. So I'm just going back to the top again here in part 2, see if any of these links may be of interest. So the first link is AdSense program policies, the content policies, the webmaster quality guidelines, the ad implementation policies, end user consent policies, Google branding guidelines. Let's see. Software principles is a link. Payment thresholds. That may be of interest, or I would read that, everyone. Threshold all by itself is a link. Account, cancellation process, and threshold again, and threshold again. They must think threshold as a term, or in this contract, is real important for it to be highlighted. I'm just going to go through all the links real quick before I click on one. Privacy or privacy policy, depending on what accent you're using. UK, Australia, South African, North American accent of the pronunciation. Google Ads, controller data protection terms. What other highlighted links? Super links, or whatever you want, hyperlinks. Contact page, that's probably a good one. AdMob, publisher guidelines and policies, and a custom engine. So I thought they had a click for links. I was real curious to see how they define that term for their benefit. All right, let's go down a little. All right, so I'm back up to the top here. Software principles, payment threshold. That's subject to change, but it'd be nice to know what it is. Threshold, since it's in there multiple times, let's see what that link jumps to. This is what your congressmen and senators do not do, which is actually read the legislation they vote on. Here is the threshold payment thresholds link. which they, I guess, really want you to read, having the most links for that than anything else. There are several earning thresholds that impact whether you're eligible to be paid for your AdSense earnings. These thresholds vary depending on the reporting currency in your account, which could be euros, Canadian, American dollars, British pounds, and such, Japanese yen. For more information about thresholds, click the links and in the table or see the threshold description. So if thresholds tax information entry has 0, address verification $10, form of payment entry $10, payment $100, cancellation $10. So I'll just highlight payment because that's probably what a lot of you, if you're going to have a channel, are concerned with. Euros in Deutsch, euros with an English accent is 70 euros because the euro is more valuable than the dollar in the world exchange, and the pound, which when I was a youngin' living in a British colony in the Bahamas, where we had a third home there, it was 60. It was 5 or 6 pounds to the dollar. Now you can see that it's only like 1.4 pounds to the dollar, the way they exchange. That's how the pound has weakened over the decades. Australia dollar they have at par. Canadian dollar at par, but the US dollar is much more valuable right now than those. Czech krona, Danish krone, Hong Kong dollar, Hungarian forint, the shekel of Israel, 400 shekels to the dollar, the New Zealand dollar, the Swiss franc, the Turkish lira. Tax information entry threshold. Depending on your location, you may be required to provide certain information for tax purposes. If you are required to submit tax information, you will be able to do so when you first log into your account. To learn whether you need to provide tax information and if necessary, sign in to your, number 1, your AdSense account. 2, in the left navigation panel, click Payments, click Payment Management Settings. 4, in the tax information section, click this icon that looks kind of like a crayon. If you're required to enter tax information, you'll see a tax wizard prompting you to enter your information. Address verification threshold. To verify the accuracy of your account information, we will mail a personal identification number called a PIN in parentheses. That's the acronym for Personal Identification Number to your payment address when your earnings reach the verification threshold. You'll then be required to enter this PIN in your account. Learn more about the address verification, and there's a link here in blue. Payment method selection according to terms and conditions, which I will not click on now. Active account, this is already going to be long videos. Active accounts need to reach the payment threshold in order to qualify for a payment. Since we don't ever issue payments for less than this threshold, we don't allow publishers to select a form of payment until their earnings have reached this amount. For more information, see the AdSense Payments Guide. Payment threshold. You will be paid out when your unpaid earnings reach the payments threshold as long as there are no holds on your account and you're in compliance with all of our policies. For more information about when you'll get paid, see payment timelines. If your monthly earnings haven't yet reached the payment threshold, you'll be rolled over and combined with your next month's earnings. If your new balance exceeds the payment threshold, you'll be issued a payment at the end of the following month. For example, if your June earnings did not meet the payment threshold, you'll be rolled over and combined with your July earnings. If your new balance exceeds the threshold, we'll issue a single lump sum payment for your combined June and July earnings at the end of August. If a payment threshold prevented your most recent balance from payment in your normal payment cycle, Your payment will be issued within a few days of removing the payment hold. Cancellation threshold. If you decide to cancel your account and your account balance is greater than the cancellation threshold, you'll receive your final payment within 90 days of the end of the month, provided that you've completed the necessary steps to get paid. I've already reached the $100 threshold. If you've got $100 or more on the payments page in your absence account, there's braces there with an ellipsis. That means there's information that could be massive that's meant to be within these braces. Then payments could be issued sometime between the 21st and 25th of February. Payment threshold, if finalized, amount is more than $10, then a few days after that you should, there's some big set here that we don't know what it is, which enable you to verify your street address. Reached 100% of my payment threshold but not paid, without a question mark. If you haven't received the PIN, that's the acronym here. The N is for number. Then you may have to request another, assuming there is someone at your previous address to receive it. Was this article helpful? Then they did use a question mark. Yay or nay? And then there's more links here on the side. Payment, facts and questions and such. That I could say quite a bit about all this, but the summation is, and I am a dyslexic, severely dyslexic individual. And for me, I need to do what's called over-learning, where I use repetition. So forgive me, but the point is might makes right. Google is mighty. It was created by the military-industrial complex. Through secret societies, the senior leadership of the company was selected from power elite families, either to be puppets or to direct money into and power into the families. So, you know, they weren't these creative, brilliant people that came up with it. It was all developed by the taxpayers or the government creating digital fiat dollars out of nothing to pay for a massive military-industrial complex, which places confidentiality agreements on everyone, and for decades had this technology for our nuclear missile and submarine fleets, and to develop new jet fighters and submarines and warships and everything. And then eventually it was rolled out to the public, and these people were chosen to run the company, and where through our system where we can use alchemy to create wealth, which is reinforced by the bullet and the bomb, and the massive resources over 1/5 of the economy, to ensure that this intangible abstract currency has value. Over 1/5 of all economic activity is to ensure property rights and the integrity of our currency. And that's one of the major, the military has multiple jobs to do, but one of the major ones is for the entire globe. The Navy and Marine Corps have globes on a lot of their symbols. Like when I was a petty officer in the Navy, which I'm proud to have been a petty officer, is I got my hands dirty and was in actual close quarters combat and saw the enemies I was smiting instead of flying above them at thousands of meters above the ground or in a command center pushing buttons. That is the reality. Everything from your security guard to the mall to an Air Force jet fighter pilot or a unmanned aerial vehicle operator working out of a container somewhere. a shipping container full of electronics with his joysticks and cameras, or her. Women are especially good at piloting drones because they have a little bit better tactile hand-eye coordination, maybe from millennia of knitting and furs into clothes and things. And they're better at sitting still and concentrating than men are. Men are more hunter, movement, kinetic type guys. It's for a man to be able to sit still and study Torah or the Zohar is it's always been challenging for me to sit still. I'm more of a hunter. I'd rather go out and put 20 kilometers on my boots and my bow and arrow and spear and go hunt me some meat with a few of my friends. But that's more my DNA. That's all I have. Shalom. Be strong and of good courage. Farewell. This has been a Forward Research Report. Farewell and goodbye. Leve wohl und auf Wiedersehen. Adieu et au revoir.